Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissack and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissack.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Hey, I'm super excited. You have found us an amazing guest. And so why don't you kick us off and introduce?
Yeah, very excited. New-ish friend. Again, from the John Maxwell Network. I know we talk so much about the relationships that we've built through John, you and I both, and it's just been such a blessing and so incredible, but really excited to have Jordan Montgomery on today. So Jordan, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Dana, Linda, thank you for having me. It means a lot to be here. I'm so impressed with your show and your preparation and organization, and it's just an honor to share a conversation. So good to be with you.
I have to tell you something funny. We booked a couple of guests just that, I had been networking with and that are doing things that I've been interested in. And so when I reached out to you, we reached out to a couple others, and Graham Cochran was one, and you guys both ended up on the same day, and he was right before you. So he said, tell Jordan hi.
I love Graham. That's awesome. That's a hard act to follow right there. He's such a gifted communicator and a great guy. So that's awesome. Love Graham. Big fan.
It was great. It was awesome. Well, we always kind of kick off. Linda has her great question, which is so good. You were born and then what? So maybe not all the way back to when you were born, but tell everybody just a little bit about yourself and kind of where you were and where you are now and your journey.
That is a great question to intro a podcast. I was born in Mercy Hospital, Iowa City. Just kidding. But really, I was born in Iowa City, grew up in Kelowna, Iowa. One stoplight, little don't blink town or you'll miss it, Southeast Iowa. So my dad was a blue collar painter. Mom's a teacher. Just a simple life. I went to the University of Iowa. Really, I just went for the social experiment. I thought if I can get out of here with any kind of a degree, doesn't even matter what it's in. And I make some good friends and God opened some doors. I'll consider that a success. So I came out of school. I had a degree in recreation management. Very, very impressive. Recreation management from the University of Iowa. And I decided, I want to own a business, but I didn't have any money. I also didn't have any experience. So I jumped into the financial services world.
Yeah.
And the financial services world is what ultimately led me to the work that I'm doing now. But yeah, I just have a simple background. Grew up in the Midwest. Had a mom and dad who were, good people. Taught me about, faith and family and how to work hard. And that's a little bit about my background without going too much further.
Jordan, it was funny. Linda, you'll think this is funny too. This morning, Adam and I always, before we leave the house, which this morning was really early because we did content super early with Tyler when the sun came up. But I said, we always say, what do you have on your, what are you doing today? What am I doing today? And so I said, Linda and I are having Jordan on our podcast. Do you have any great questions that you think that I should ask him or that you want to know? And Adam said, yeah. Why does he live in Iowa? Tell him he needs to move closer to move to Charleston.
Well, it's so funny. Okay, so when I go to a conference or, travel like the both of you, I say to people, they say, where are you from? And I say, Iowa. And then they'll say, so where do you live now? And I'm like, hey, I still live in Iowa,
Representing.
Yeah, representing, Iowa. I will be in Charleston next year, so we'll get a hang in Charleston, Dana.
Nice. Yeah, love it. Love it. Okay, Jordan, can you talk a little bit about your wealth management days and just lessons you learned from there and kind of what you did there, and then we'll get into your space. And definitely we want to talk about your book.
Yeah, well, I'll just take people back to a tough day in my life. April 1st, 2015. We probably have some people listening who are going through some tough times. So if you're hearing this and you're thinking, man, I'm in a struggle or I'm in a valley season, I just want you to know that I am talking to you. And if you're not in a valley season, maybe you actually find yourself in a mountaintop season. You can at least relate to a valley season because you're human. And I think part of being human is we're either going into the valley, we're in the valley, or we're coming out of one.
Yeah.
So my valley, one of my valleys in life was April 1st, 2015. I got a call from my supervisor. He said, Jordan, we need to talk right away. Because I was naive and 27 years old, I said, not today. I got things to do, but maybe some other day, we can schedule a meeting. And he said, Jordan, it's the kind of meeting where you clear your calendar. I need to see you as soon as possible. I said, oh my goodness. Somebody on my team because it couldn't have been me. Somebody on my team must have made a really big mistake, and I got to go, clean it up. So to set the stage, I'm a 27-year-old financial advisor. I'm leading this organization inside of a Fortune 100 firm. We had the fastest growing office. Things are going really well. I'm flying all over the country to teach and train and speak, and I was the closing speaker at our big annual conference, this 15,000 person sold out NBA arena. And so I'm thinking at the time, like, life is going really well. But I had an issue. I was really overexposed and underdeveloped. And so, like, my character just wasn't keeping pace with my influence. And I knew what I was doing, but I didn't necessarily know who I was. I knew of Jesus. I wasn't really walking with him. I love my family, but I didn't spend a lot of time with them. I mean, I was just sort of living for the ways of the world. So I walk into my supervisor's office, April 1st, 2015, a couple hours after I got this message. And this is what he said to me. He said, Jordan, you haven't been malicious or intentional, but you've been careless and casual. And when you're casual, you create casualties. Today, you are the casualty. It will be your last day with our firm.
And you were like pretty at the top, right?
Yeah, at the time. I mean, I had worked hard. It was sort of like hard work meets opportunity, but I had ascended to a high-level leadership position inside this firm, and which really made all of this more difficult because they send out a company-wide email with my name on it explaining that I'm terminated. So it's very public, very embarrassing. The issue was there was a person on my team who had taken a test on my behalf. I didn't report it like I should have. And that by itself wasn't a termination type of infraction. It could have been, but I just really wasn't dotting the I's, crossing the T's. And so my leader, and good on him, said, I just don't trust your character. You need to work on yourself. You just can't do it here. So you're going to have to go do that somewhere else. So I could still be in the industry. In fact, I could still work for the same company, but I had to restart. He kept my clients.
Wow.
I was also involved in some real estate deals that went sideways because they weren't structured properly. And so literally, Dana and Linda, I go from the penthouse to the outhouse in a matter of 24 to 48 hours. I had 3,000 messages on my phone. It's unbelievably public. I'm losing all my money. I lost my position. I'm 27, and for a young guy who found all of his identity and his achievement, it just kind of rocked me from the inside out. So that was where I kind of started in my financial services business. I did get picked back up by another supervisor named Tim Bohannon. Moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota. He said, you can work for me, but this is how it's going to go. You're not going to speak. You're not going to train. You're not going to teach. You're just going to rebuild your business and rebuild your life. And so I did that for 2 years, working for Tim in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I had a little corner office. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't super fun, but God met me in the valley, taught me a lot, and I rebuilt my life. And in that season, I met my now wife, Ashley, who lived in Iowa. She had 2 little girls, Audrey and Clary, just 5 and 3. And I met those little girls when they were just Ashley's daughters, and now they're my daughters, and officially got to adopt them. We have 4 children, and I think God was preparing me for my biggest leadership job, which was becoming daddy. And he had to do some work in me before he did stuff with me, and I got to move back home. But all of that, I think, prepared me for the work that I do today, both personally and professionally.
Yeah. Wow. Incredible.
Yeah.
And Jordan, really, to know you today, like, that sounds like a different person. You know what I mean? I mean, so different than who you are
Thank
today.
goodness.
Yeah, well, and so I'm just wondering, I mean, how much personal work? I know a lot of it is obviously you're a strong person of faith. So I know God had a huge hand in all of this, but it sounds like you really you had to become very self-aware and do a lot of personal work on yourself too.
Yeah, I really did. And it wasn't perfect, like, especially in the beginning, I mean, in the beginning, I was mostly just full of excuses. I was like, this isn't fair, and I got screwed over, and how could he do this to me? And then my supervisor looked at me one day. He said, Jordan, you need to start asking yourself this question. It's one of life's best questions. And this question is going to set you free from all of your resentment and bitterness and anger. He said, the question is, what part of the problem is me? And I was like, Tim, but I'm not part of the problem. And he's like, well, whether you're 10% of the problem or 90% of the problem, you're part of the problem. You have work to do.
Yeah.
And that question will set you free. And so I started asking that question, and it led me to my Bible. A lot of nights sitting by myself. Sometimes God has to take you away from people. He's got to get you by yourself. And so, I just started digging into the Word and spending time with the Lord. And for the first time, started asking more questions. I was really humbled. I was really, really humbled. You know that scripture in James that says, "Consider it pure joy when you go through trials of many kinds, because the testing of your faith produces perseverance." And I remember reading that, but there's no joy in this. This is awful. This is not a joy-filled season. But when I think about all the blessings that came out of that valley season, like my wife, my children, a new career,
wow,
and more importantly, a renewed faith and mindset. Man, somebody on this podcast, somebody listening right now is struggling, and I just want you to hear this. Sometimes God's preparation is packaged as pain.
Yeah.
It might be dark. If you're not buried, you're planted. And God can do some really cool things in the broken seasons of your life. So take heart, my friend. He's got a plan for your life.
Yeah. So true.
Love
so
that.
true.
Linda, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I say this all the time. If you give it long enough, your greatest challenge becomes your greatest blessing. But you got to find the lessons that you're supposed to learn in it, and how are you supposed to serve with it? Because it's your lessons that you've got to learn, but there's also a way for you to serve in it. But it just takes time. If you decide to be bitter and angry and not look for the lessons in it, hence what your DNA is in it, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so Linda and Dana, I want to ask you a question. Don't you think, because I heard this the other day, and I know the two of you have been through something, because you wouldn't be where you're at today if you hadn't been through some stuff. Don't you think that we're most uniquely qualified to help the person we used to be?
We just talked about that with Graham and Rory Vaden. Yes.
Yeah, and I know Rory talks about that, Ned. It's and that's so true. To your point, Linda, I think our deepest hurt can become our greatest ministry.
Yep.
Because you're qualified to help somebody who is now maybe going through that similar issue. So I would totally sign off on what you said.
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself when you're going through those situations that God may be preparing you to use that to serve somewhere, right?
Yeah,
it's look at it as an opportunity, that the reason you're going through it is because there's an opportunity for you to serve other people with it at some point.
Amen. Yeah. Well said.
Well, and I love what our dear friend John Maxwell says. When you're going through things like that, it'll either make you bitter or better, but the choice is yours. And it's true. I mean, and thankfully for you, Jordan, it made you a heck of a lot better. Sorry.
I love that a dog's joining us on the podcast right now. God bless you, Dana. That's real life. That's real life.
Mistake number one, bringing them to the office today.
Yeah.
I love it. I did get better, and I'm thankful for all of it. So I appreciate you asking the question and being able to share some of the messy stuff. Because so many times you get on a podcast, and people start sharing the highlight reel. Listen, I've screwed up so many things, and I'm just really thankful for God's grace.
That's awesome. So tell us where you are now. I mean, I'm looking at a book that looks amazing. Can't wait to read, called The Art of Encouragement.
Yeah.
How did we land here?
Yeah. Thank you, Linda, for the question. We're releasing our first book, Art of Encouragement. Our dear friend, John Maxwell, wrote the foreword. And we just really wrote this book to give people hope, also to equip leaders. I think encouragement is a universal language that the whole world understands and that everyone needs. And so the book releases in July, and we're really excited about it.
Where'd you talk a little bit about just how you came up with it and the experience of your first book? I'm curious.
Well, John said this to me, Dana. He said, the best book you'll ever write is the one that you live. And I feel like I lived that. I feel like when I was in that valley season, I just had people who were so kind and gracious and generous to me. And I just felt the impact of encouragement and generosity and grace and kindness. And so I wanted to write a book about what I felt, and I wanted to help leaders offer that to the world. And I think, unfortunately, this topic of encouragement, I think people put themselves in a box. They'll say, I am an encourager, or I'm not an encourager. Or I'll share some ideas, and I'll have executive leaders, specifically older men, who will say stuff like, well, that's just not my style. I wouldn't talk like that to people. And I just challenge it. I say, hey, listen, if someone in your family was living their last day on planet Earth before they hopefully go home to spend time with Jesus, if you knew that, do you think you'd find a way to pull them aside and tell them how much you love them and appreciate them? And of course, it's a rhetorical question, right? But I mean, they always say, well, yeah, of course, so, but say, hey, look, that's evidence that the language of encouragement is not about a style. It's about a choice. It's a choice to encourage people. It's a choice to be kind. It's a choice to see the good, to point out the good, and to help people live into the person that they were called to be. And so there's 10 different arts in the book. The book is 10 chapters, 10 arts. And these arts just get specific and tangible on how we can more practically and more powerfully encourage the people around us.
I love that. I love that. Well, I have a new role in my life. I just said the other day I want a new chief fun officer. And now I want a new chief encouragement officer.
Yeah.
Come on, Linda. Love to be on your team. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Still a CEO. Chief
CEO.
Encouragement Officer.
Yes, that's perfect.
Jordan, what are you seeing most leaders? I know you speak a lot of organizations, talk to a lot. What are you seeing most leaders struggle with today in the kind of industry that we're all in?
Yeah, I'll just point out some things that I think all leaders, including me, struggle with. Because it's easy to just fall into a trap and to assume that we're encouraging people because we're going through the motions and we're doing the things that we're taught to do, but we're sometimes missing it. And here's an area where I've missed, and I think a lot of leaders miss. They tend to encourage the do over the who instead of the who over the do. That is, they spend a lot of time on results or achievement. Who had the biggest sale, who closed the biggest deal, who completed the biggest project. And so maybe it's a Monday morning meeting, or it's a leadership meeting, or it's a sales meeting. You kind of go around the room and it's, well, Dana, you get 2 stars, and Linda, you get 3 stars. And even like with our children, I fall into that trap with my kids. Just the other day, our 4-year-old daughter won this little dance competition. And it's just easy for me to say, like, hey, sis, like, so proud of you, and you did this and you did that, and you landed this perfect jump. I mean, we just get into the do, to what somebody did.
Yeah.
Instead of spending a lot of time encouraging who people are. And so, like, Dana, I could say this to you. I could say, hey, Dana, because we've known each other for a little while now, I could say, Dana, I'm so impressed with all that you're doing, and you've got this podcast, you've partnered with Linda, you've got this, amazing coaching business and real estate business, and your presence is so felt in so many places. And I don't know how you're keeping it all together as a mom and a wife, and like, just, you're doing so much. Like, I'm just so impressed with all that you're doing. And I hope that would mean something to you.
Yeah.
Right. But it wouldn't mean as much as if I pulled you aside and said, like, hey, Dana, I think you are one of the most kind and thoughtful people that I've spent time with.
Yeah.
And I think you have a gift of intuition that's God-given. God gave you the gift of intuition. He allowed you to read things about people and see things in people that most people don't see. So that part of who you are is unique to you. And that's a God-given gift. And I think it's actually the gift that you have of intuition and the ability to build relationships that's allowed you to do what you do. So I hope that you're just recognizing that. I think you'll continue to steward that, but I want you to know that that is unique to you and you have that gift. And most people don't have it. So that would be an example of where I think pulling somebody aside to say, like,
yeah,
I believe in who you are, and I want to point out your gifts, and I want you to see them. I think it's harder to do. It doesn't come natural. It can even be a little bit awkward. And yet, if we look back at the most encouraging conversations in our lives, like especially if we go back to childhood, and somebody spoke life into us or over us, it's almost a guarantee the conversations you remember had very little to do with what you did. And it had far more to do with who you are. Somebody pulled you aside and they say, I see something in you, and I want you to see it too. And I think as leaders, we have a chance to do that every day and reach people in a deeper and more meaningful way if we prioritize the who over the do.
Okay, so I have a question. I think I brought this up before. I'm trying to think who I brought it up, which author I brought it up to. It was a book. But so Jordan, I have a scenario for you. Okay, so in the past, hypothetically, I have this friend. That's what Dana and I always say when it's really us.
I love it.
I've had certain employees, I think I'm doing a good job of saying, thank you, I'm grateful for you, all those things. And they don't hear it. Or I'll hear that they say,
she never appreciated me.
Yeah, something like that. So I'm just curious, is it specific to each individual what they need to hear or how to do it? Because obviously somehow between what I was doing and what they were getting, there was a disconnect.
Maybe how
this friend of mine hypothetically told me this story.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so don't you think we all go through this? All of us have had this experience, right? We're like, this person doesn't feel appreciated. Like, it's crazy. How do they not feel it? I've told them so many times. So there's 2 different chapters in the book that are specific to what you're talking about, Linda. I think the art of consistent encouragement and then the art of authentic encouragement. But before I get into those chapters, I'll tell you a quick story with my wife. I'm married to a wonderful woman. Her name's Ashley, and we are complete opposites. I remember we first got married, and I would tell her all the time, like, I love you, and I appreciate you. I see value in you. I would give her hugs. Like, I would, because I'm a physical touch, words of affirmation, love language person. That's who I am.
Yeah.
And so I would try to show her love the way that I want to receive love. And she is a acts of service, quality time person. And so I was missing her, but then I learned something really cool. If I did the dishes, or I ran an errand, or I wrote her a note, it was like a big deal, because she would tell me, I would tell her I love you all the time. And she would say, I don't really feel love, or I feel like we're missing each other. I'm like, I've told you a zillion times. How could you not feel love? But then I would do the dishes. She's like, you're really stepping up. Like, you're just really making me feel valued. And
you really love me.
Yeah, you really. And I'm like, how is putting the pots and pans away showing you more love than giving you a physical hug, right? So the first point is this. I think it really does go back, Linda, to the individual, like seeking first to understand and really trying to be thoughtful about how people are wired. Now, if you lead a big organization, there's a leader listening going, I've got 200 people on my team. I can't possibly know that about each person.
Yeah.
So I think that's true. You can't always know that about each person, but where you can identify someone's love language or how they want to receive praise, encouragement, recognition, I'd really pay attention to that. Second is the art of authentic encouragement. I think we have to work really hard to be specific in how we encourage. So many leaders, and I'm guilty, will say stuff like, hey, Linda, I just appreciate you. Or, hey, you're killing it. You're having a great week. Or keep up the good work. Or I have this one leader. This is a great guy. He's a great leader. But he says this, and it's so confusing to me. It's not even I've never heard anybody else say this. Okay, don't say this. If you're listening, this is what not to do. Even though I love this guy. He would see you, and he'll say, who loves you, baby?
Ooh.
That's like, what? And then he'll answer his own question, and he'll say, I do. And he'll say that to like everyone. I'm like, that is so weird and confusing. And I think he thinks he's really reaching people. And I'm like, no, that's just creepy and weird. And
I was just going to say a little creepy too.
It's weird. It's weird. But I think the same thing happens when we hand out the proverbial fist pounds and high fives. I think people question it. Like, are you really being real with me? I had this experience in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'll never forget it. I had a coaching session with a guy named Bob Tykert. God bless him. Bob is this old school East Coast hard-nosed coach. And I'd never met him before, but I knew he was this legendary coach. And my boss at the time said, hey, I paid for you to have a coaching session with Bob. He's in the conference room. You're going to meet with him at noon today. I've set it all up. You're going to love it. So I go to the coaching session at noon. I open the conference door. Bob Tykert standing there, perfectly dressed suit, slick back hair. And I looked right at him and I said, Bob Tykert, I said, great to meet you. My name's Jordan Montgomery, and I have heard amazing things about you. And he said, like what?
Oh, no.
And I said, well, like just some amazing things, And he looked at me again and he said, like what? And then we sat down, and I'm thinking, this is getting really awkward. And he put his hand on the table. He looked me straight in the face. And he said, you know, Jordan, I think you have an authenticity problem. I think you're full of it. And I want to help you with that.
Wow.
And I just remember thinking, I'm never going to let that happen again. If I have praise to give someone, I'm going to make sure that I have some substance to it, that I can provide an example or something specific. I want someone to receive me as authentic.
Yeah.
And then the final thought there, Linda, the art of consistent encouragement. I think the reality is people need to hear something like 7 or 8 times before it sticks.
Yeah.
My friend Craig Rochelle says, just because you said it doesn't mean that they heard it, believe it, or will do it.
Yeah.
And I think as leaders, I'm like, well, I already said it. And it's like, yeah, but you got to say it again and again and again. You're not just the CEO, you're the CRO, you're the chief reminding officer. And so we got to remind people over and over and over again, which seems so silly. But I think it's true.
Yeah, it reminds me of the story of the man that tells his wife, well, I told you I loved you once when we first got married. If that changes, I'll let you know.
I'll let you know.
That's good. I haven't heard that. That's good.
Wow.
Oh,
okay,
man.
that's fantastic.
Not about that one.
Yeah. Well, as usual, I'm thinking, when does this book come out? I need it yesterday.
I need it too. These are all, things I'm working on, to be clear.
Yeah, that's good. Well, it's always good to have, even if you're working on it, to bring people along and work along it with them. I think we learn sometimes more through other people's stories and examples because we see our own mistakes or, mishaps or whatever when I hear another story, or I watch it and I think, oh my gosh, I wonder if I do that. I might do that myself. I might be guilty of that.
Yeah, my wife would say you should find another topic to teach because you have a lot of work to do.
Well, it's kind of like this. I always say I teach fierce, but I sometimes still mess it up. I teach a class called Fierce Conversations, and I tell them at the very first class, but I'm going to tell you right now, there are moments when this actually doesn't work and you have to make a decision. Do I keep the person or do I not? Because sometimes I can use the confront conversation and their behavior still doesn't change. I have to ask, how valuable to me are they? Right.
Yeah,
so I'm curious, why encouragement? Was there a trigger? Was there, what caused, you had lots of things in your story that you could help people with. What was it about encouragement and how'd that idea come along and flourish?
Part of this is how I'm wired. So I think, for whatever reason, God gave me the ability to encourage or to speak life and speak truth. I don't always get it right, and I do have a lot of work to do. But I find myself in a lot of situations where I'm called to encourage or believe in someone or help somebody see, who they were made to be. And I love those conversations. And I've also been on the other end of it where I've been in some really difficult situations or some seasons of life that weren't so hot. And I just remember how much it meant to me when someone showed me kindness or generosity or spoke life over me. And so I think because I felt both sides of that. And then I think the other thing, I'll get emotional. My God has just been so good to me. And it's been so encouraging. Like I felt the love of the Lord on my life, especially the last few years, like just his favor and his kindness. And I don't know why. I don't know why he's decided to be so kind, but because I felt that I wanted to give that to people. And I think you'll find in the book, like there's a faith bent to it. And if you're not a believer or you're struggling with faith, it's still a book for you. But I wanted to write a book that would point people to Jesus because I think he's the ultimate encourager. And so it was a way for me to, I think, point people to Jesus and also share from some of my own life experience.
I love it. Well, and I think what I think of when you say this is, I remember years ago, Oprah said that she learned in all of her interviews that the number one human desire people have is to be understood, not interpreted. So if you can get the message right, how well will they feel known? And then we had Dr. Henry Cloud on here who wrote the book Trust. And he says the number one way you build trust is to understand people and have empathy. And I laugh because I've asked Chris Voss the question when he taught Never Split the Difference. And then when Dr. Henry Cloud talks about it, I said, I'm just going to be honest with you. I really struggle with this empathy thing. Y'all tell me. I said, I have empathy for people who I feel like can change their situation. Can't change their situation, but I struggle with someone when I know that they can. change that situation, they don't. And it was actually Dr. Henry Cloud that gave me the best advice. He said, Linda, it's not that you are letting them off the hook. You're just understanding where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Having empathy for how they must be feeling. And that changed everything for me, because I felt so unauthentic if I was doing empathy the way I thought it was, when Chris explained it and stuff. And I think this leads back to that if we can learn encouragement, people will feel so understood. And it, it goes back to really us understanding that person to nail the encouragement, to nail the characteristics and the traits that they have. So I think this is so needed right now. I mean, I need it like yesterday.
And Jordan, it's so timely because I don't know if Forbes recently came out with the average employee. Let me see if I can get this right. The average employee right now care more than making more money or more than getting a salary increase. They want to work for a workplace where they feel like encouraged, appreciated, like they're a part of a team. That community is more important to them than actually the what's it called? Linda, we don't get them when you're benefits. Like benefits, more important than when you're an entrepreneur, you got to make your own benefits, but more important to them than benefits, than a pay rate. Like they want to feel like they're a part of something and they're valued and encouraged from. And I just thought, man, that's a shift, compared to what always has been before.
It is. I think people want to belong, right? They want to belong. They want to know that they matter.
Yeah.
Greg Rochelle said you could summarize this in 4 words. I notice, you matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that. And you could summarize this whole book. In fact, maybe it should have been the subtitle. It's like, I notice, you matter.
Yeah.
That's true.
People want to matter. They want to feel seen, and they want to know that they belong.
Yeah.
So when does the book come out?
July 24th is launch date.
Hey, we don't have to wait very long.
Yeah, it's right around the corner, and we're ready for it. We're excited.
Do we have a pre-order link or something we can put in the show notes?
Yeah, it is the artoфencouragementbook.com. So the artoфencouragementbook.com, and we are doing a free webinar with John Gordon, Ryan Leake, David Nurse, and Jess Ekstrom. So order a book, join us for the webinar. The webinar's on July 12th. We'd love to have any listeners join us for.
I'm definitely going to be on.
Awesome.
Yeah,
thanks, Dana. Dana, y'all are personal development junkies. I love the way that you just jump in. And for all of your success, I love the way that both of you are so committed to learning. So I would be on it, but I'm going to be on a boat with John. Oh, that's even way better. You're learning from the GOAT, the ultimate leadership legend. So
Jordan, Linda, and Jim are doing the Greece yacht where Paul with John Maxwell. Yeah, and I just told her I'm so jealous. First of all, I was envious of it in the beginning, and I was thinking, why the heck did we not do this? And then I saw CeCe Winans and Chris Tomlin are their worship leaders for the 15 days, and now I'm like, okay, now I'm really having FOMO.
You are just going to have the best time. I'm jealous too. Well, send pictures while we're on the webinar. We'll be looking at Linda learning on a boat.
That sounds good. Well, we have 2 John questions that we've learned to ask. Dana, you want to lead off with yours, and then I'll ask them.
Yep. Okay. Last 2 questions. What are you learning right now? Like, what are you into that we might want to learn about too?
Yeah.
Since we are learning junkies.
Okay. So here's what I'm learning. Maybe you're learning about this too. This whole paradox of education, like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And I'm just feeling like now more than ever, there's just a lot I don't know. And I feel like God has really put me in some unique positions. Like he just humbled me quite a few times. I've even just was dealing with something this morning. Okay, God, like I have a lot of work to do. So really though, it's about self-awareness, and John wrote this book, The Self-Aware Leader. And he says in this book, the first lesson I learned in coaching people is that people have a very easy time seeing everybody else and a very difficult time seeing themselves.
Yeah.
And I read that and I'm like, I probably just have work to do. I got to get more feedback. There's a lot that I have to learn about myself, about others. And so I've been really jamming on this topic of self-awareness lately. And the interesting part about self-awareness is it just doesn't happen on its own. It takes coaching and intentionality and effort and feedback. And so, so I would say right now I've just been really fascinated with learning about myself and the world around me.
Love that.
Self-awareness.
Well, we've said this
Love
before
it.
on the podcast, but one of our favorite things that John has taught us all is you're just one decision away from stupid.
Come on.
So being self-aware is really good. And Linda, tell him about when we have a mentor, Mo Anderson, who John dedicated High Road Leadership book to.
Yeah.
And Linda, tell him about when Mo called you and said she made a mistake and you were like, oh,
Oh yeah. We were going to have Mo speak, and I think we had about 500 people going to show up to hear. And so she called me and she said, "Linda, I screwed up." And I thought, "Oh my God, you're 85. How old is she?"
86 then.
Well, she was 85 then. I said,
Oh, yeah.
You're 85 years old. You got to be kidding me. You mean we're going to still screw up at 85? No, I'm losing hope here. I thought we would stop all that.
Yeah,
Like, you're not upset about me maybe not speaking. Linda's like, no, I just don't want to still be making mistakes at 85.
I'm just upset that we are going to still make mistakes at 85.
Oh,
we have it all figured out.
That's a good story. And to John's credit, I feel like we're talking about John a lot on this podcast, but I think he's meant so much to all three of us,
Yeah. Yeah.
The question that he always poses is, what am I missing?
Yeah.
And so on this topic of self-awareness, I think what a powerful question for leaders to ask is just like, what am I missing? Because too often I'm making assumptions that I see it or I know it. Like I know how my people are feeling. I know how they're doing. And I know I'm missing it. And so I got to do a better job of what am I missing? And I feel like God's convicted me of of that lately. So that's what I'm learning.
That's
Love
awesome. Love that.
Great answer.
Well, final John question. Who do you know that we should know, Jordan?
Oh, this is like the best question. And let me say this, the two of you do such a good job at this podcast. Like I would refer anyone to this,
Yay.
Thanks.
prepared, dynamic, great questions. Anyway, it's interesting because y'all know so many of the same people that I know. But if we're talking about podcast guests, can I just riff real quick? And then
Yeah.
you can say, hey, I know 9 of those people, but there's one that I don't know because I know that the two of you know everyone. So John Gordon needs to be on this podcast if he hasn't been already. Has he been on?
That was our last one we've been saying that we wanted to have. We've never had John Gordon.
Okay. John's got to be on the show. Just love John. He's such a just authentic leader. Have you had Jess Ekstrom on lately?
No, and funny you say that because Chad Johnson told me like 3 people I need to get to know like in the next 60 days based on a conversation we had, and Jess was one of them.
I'll introduce you to Jess. She's on our speaking team.
Yeah.
She spoke at Day to Grow and she killed it. She's just dynamic, authentic, has an amazing story. So Jess,
love to have her.
Let's see, Chad Greenway. I don't know if you know Chad, former Pro Bowler with the Vikings. Just a great, was an amazing story. Ryan Leak, if you haven't had Ryan, it'd be a great ad.
He's on our list. We haven't, but we would love to have Ryan. Yeah.
Okay, Ryan would be great. I mean, there's so many,
Yeah, those are great.
Have you had Pat Lencioni on your show yet?
We love Pat, but we've never had Pat, Linda. We should have asked him when we were in San Francisco with him, but we didn't.
Yeah, but I think I have a close connection, so we might work on that one again.
Yeah, man, Ideal Team Player is like one of my top 10 books of all times.
I'll tee you up with Pat or with any of those folks.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Yeah, they would love hanging out with the two of you. So.
And any way that we can bring value to you, Jordan, or help you, we'll definitely be linking your book and the pre-order and the July 12th event and all that. We're so excited for you. So anything we can do to help you, we're definitely on board to do.
Well, listen, you've already added value and you helped me. And Linda, it's so great to meet you. Like you are just an unbelievable source of wisdom. I can tell. Like you speak, and it's just like I got notes from. This is the first time I've been on a podcast where I'm a guest. Look at this. I'm taking all kinds of notes. I'm
Yay.
Like, come on. Awesome. This is good.
Well, no one succeeds alone, right? So you teach us and we hopefully can help you too.
Well, you're amazing. And Dana, I just so much appreciated getting to know you and Adam. And you're such a great encourager. And so you've already added so much value to me. And
awesome.
I want to do anything I can to add value to the two of you. So you let me know if there's a connection or an opportunity or anything you need from me. I'm in to help. So just know that.
We appreciate it.
We appreciate that. And we'll put a link in the show notes, Jordan, for the book. And we'll both put our own selves on the pre-order list right away.
Oh, thank you. That means a ton. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a blessed day.
God bless you both. Thank you, Linda. Thanks, Dana, for having me.
God bless. And remember, if you have not hit the subscribe button, please go ahead and do that now. And the greatest compliment you can pay Dana and I is to pass this podcast along to anyone who you think would benefit from these conversations. And if you have a challenge, an opportunity, a question, or a guest that you think would be good on our podcast, be sure and reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. Dana, I'll see you next week. And Jordan, thank you so much.
See you then.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.